Southern rock isn't just where a band is from. It's like a recipe. So you take the blues from the Mississippi Delta, you add the storytelling of Nashville country, you dip it in batter, you deep fry it, and then you run the whole thing through loud British amplifiers. That's the sound. It's working class music. No gimmicks, no polish. A few weeks ago, I heard Eddie Trunk interview Johnny Van Zant and Damon Johnson from Lynyrd Skynyrd, and it got me thinking about my lifelong love of Southern rock and all the bands I've listened to and enjoyed throughout the years. Growing up in the South, I was surrounded by this great music from a really young age, and after listening to that interview, I started to think about that kind of second tier of Southern rock and which artists were part of the underrated segment and how those bands were just a break or two away from the upper echelon that most of us are familiar with. I mean, the Allman Brothers, they were the blueprint. They built it. They brought the jazz style jamming and the twin lead guitars. Of course, Lynyrd Skynyrd took that blueprint and they stripped it down and they gave it some street level teeth. A few years later, you had 38 Special. They learned how to clean up that grit just enough to make it FM radio friendly. And then you had ZZ Top and the Texas Blues. They took that Texas Blues and they definitely made it something completely their own. Now, those are the giants of the genre, the big four. Everybody knows them, but underneath those guys is a pretty deep bench. You know, bands that helped build this genre, bands that helped keep it alive even in the lean years, bands that brought something heavy to the table and never got a fair shake. And there were plenty of them. Hell, the Capricorn Records label alone was chock full of excellent Southern rock bands like you had Wet Willie, Grinder Switch, Sea Level, just to name a few. So today, I'm going to count down what I think are the top 6 most underrated Southern rock bands of all time. So let's start at number 6, Brother Cane. So we're going to start off with a band that showed up late to the party, but they brought exactly what the genre needed. I mean, Brother Cane in 1993, that entire industry was staring at Seattle, Washington. Grunge had wiped out the hair metal era almost completely, and regular rock bands, they were struggling to find a home. Brother Cane were out of Birmingham, Alabama, and Damon Johnson and the boys, they didn't walk out on stage with cowboy hats, no flags. They just played thick, groovy rock that was Southern down to the bone. Now, Damon Johnson, who's now in Lynyrd Skynyrd as well, taking over for the late, great Gary Rossington, he is one of the best guitar players and songwriters that the South has produced over the last 30 years. You have songs like Got No Shame and Fools Shine On. And they proved that that Southern groove could survive the grunge wave. Now, they only made 3 albums in the 90s before they broke up, but thankfully they've reformed and they put out an excellent new album in 2026 called Magnolia Medicine, and they're keeping that spirit of Southern rock alive. Number 5 is the Marshall Tucker bands. So the Marshall Tucker Band is one of those bands that a lot of people leave out of this conversation, and that's a mistake. I mean, the Marshall Tucker Band, they're one of those Capricorn Records bands that I alluded to earlier. They were out of Spartanburg, South Carolina, and they took the Southern rock recipe. They did something no one else was doing. They threw in country, they threw in jazz, and hell, they even threw in a flute. I mean, Jerry Eubanks played flute in the Marshall Tucker Band. It somehow worked. It made them sound bigger and broader than just about anyone around them. The heart of the band was Toy Caldwell. He was their main songwriter and the lead guitar player, and he had a special style all his own. He played lead with his thumb. No pick, and that gave his solos a warm kind of rolling sound that you could spot a mile away. His brother, Tommy Caldwell, held down the bass, and Doug Gray sang leads with a voice that could go from gentle to gritty in a heartbeat. I mean, you already know some of these songs, even if you don't know the names. Can't You See is one of the greatest Southern rock songs ever written, period. Heard It in a Love Song, there's another one. Fire on the Mountain, right there, that's another one as well. So the band, they took a really hard hit when Tommy Caldwell died in a car accident back in 1980, and they never quite climbed back up to where they were previous to that. But during that classic run in the 70s, almost no one had more range than Marshall Tucker Band. People filed them under soft because they had a flute or maybe yacht rock, but they had country flavor. I mean, go ahead and put on Can't You See and tell me that band wasn't the real deal. Number 4, Black Oak, Arkansas. Now we're going to go back to the 70s again with a band with zero polish. I mean zero. And that was Black Oak, Arkansas. If the Allman Brothers were the smart, serious musicians of the South, then Black Oak, Arkansas, they were the rowdy crowd in the back of the bar. I mean, they were raw. Up front, you had Jim Dandy Mangrum, who famously played a washboard on stage, and the band had 3 guitar players and ran on pure, wild energy. Jim Dandy's whole act, the long blonde hair, the over-the-top stage moves, he was one of a kind back then. But if you go back and look at early footage of David Lee Roth and Van Halen, tell me he wasn't taking notes from Jim Dandy, because he sure as hell was. Black Oak, Arkansas, they were muddy, loud, and real. They never had any of the big pop hits, which is why people forget about them. But in the mid to late 70s, nobody wanted to follow them on stage. Number 3, Molly Hatchet. So some casual fans to the genre of Southern rock, they sometimes mix up Molly Hatchet and Skynyrd, because both of them came out of Jacksonville and had 3 guitarists. But Hatchet, they were a totally different animal. They took that boogie that was well known in Southern rock, they slammed it together with more of a heavy metal type sound. I mean, just look at their album covers. They were fantastic. Those Frank Frazetta fantasy artwork covers, they told you what you were in for before the needle even hit the album. It was aggressive. Danny Joe Brown, he was the singer, and he had a voice like a freight train. And the 3 guitar attack of Dave Lubeck, Steve LaHolland, and Dwayne Rowland, they were relentless. They had big songs like Flirtin' with Disaster and Bounty Hunter and Gator Country that were faster than their buddies were doing. So they built kind of like a bridge between Southern rock and heavy metal, and they almost never get credit for making the whole genre heavier than what it had been before. So that's number 3. Number 2 is the band from my hometown here, the Outlaws. The Outlaws, they formed right down the road here in Tampa, Florida. These guys earned the nickname the Florida Guitar Army, and they earned it for sure. I mean, they had a cool mix. They could sing tight harmonies, kind of like Crosby, Stills, and Nash and the Eagles, but they backed it up with blazing, layered guitar attack. You had Huey Thomason was one of he was the main songwriter, and he was a top shelf guitar player. Some of you may have heard the song Greengrass and High Tides. It's a 10-minute monster that stands right next to Freebird. Skynyrd, they cast such a huge shadow over the 70s that the Outlaws almost got treated like an opening act instead of the main event. I mean, if you want to hear what country sounds like when you put it through a wall of Marshall amps, sit down with the first 3 Outlaw albums. They're incredible. So that brings us to number 1. What's number 1, or who's number 1? It's Blackfoot. I mean, Blackfoot to me is the single most underrated band in the history of Southern rock. Blackfoot was the baby of Rick Medlock. Before Ricky Medlock joined Lynyrd Skynyrd full-time in the 90s, he had built this band from the ground up. And Blackfoot stood out because the core members, they had deep Native American heritage, and you could hear it in the rhythm and the soul of their music. Put on the album Strikes from 1979 or Tomcattin' from 1980, and you're not just hearing blues scales being noodled on guitar, you're hearing heavy, driving, pounding sound that felt dangerous. Medlock is a great frontman, a strong singer, a vicious lead guitar player. The song Train, Train opens with a harmonica intro from Medlock's father or grandfather, Shorty Medlock, and then it drops into one of the heaviest riffs of the decade. And Highway Song is the working man's Freebird. It starts as a soft ballad, and then it builds on into a full guitar assault. Blackfoot never got the big legacy treatment. No huge documentary, no grand tribute. But for my money, when Blackfoot was locked in 1979 to 1981, in that span of time, nobody on earth played Southern rock with more fire than Blackfoot did. So that's my list. You got Brother Kane at 6, Marshall Tucker Band at 5, Black Oak, Arkansas at 4, Molly Hatchet at 3, the Outlaws at 2, and Blackfoot and number 1. These bands laid the foundation and truthfully could have been in the upper tier of Southern rock bands if a few things would have broken differently for each of these bands. But I do want to mention one thing, because I bet you're saying, well, what about the Black Crowes or what about Little Feat? I did not include Black Crowes or Little Feat as much as I love those bands because I just don't think either of them was underrated. They were great. They're great Southern rock bands and are an upper echelon, but they are not underrated. So if you think I left a band off this list that deserves a spot on it, please put it in the comments below. Let's talk about it. I enjoy when you guys share your thoughts with me, and sometimes we go back and forth. I'll definitely read your comments, and I will respond to quite a few of them. And, so thanks for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this video and you're not a subscriber, please hit the subscribe button, like it, share it with someone you think might enjoy this. And I would really appreciate it if you did. I mean, I've got more rock and roll history and stories coming in the future. But now I got to head off, get some biscuits and gravy, and drink some sweet tea. So as I like to say, until next time,